Hi, and welcome to the Flute Talk podcast, where we talk about all things flute, live here on Patreon. What is Patreon? Patreon is a place for fans like you to come and support creators like us. For as little as $2 a month, you can join in on this live show once a month. Plus, we'll send you the popular 5-minute warm-up for Flutists in a Hurry as a gift for being so awesome. Plus, we'll give a shout out to all of our patrons in our podcast. This plus many more perks and tiers await you. So why not join us over on Patreon and help us continue to make great content? The Flute Talk podcast is also brought to you by the Flute Center of New York. The Flute Center of New York has the world's largest selection of flutes. If you need to buy a flute or piccolo, the Flute Center of New York has you covered. With our code TFC at checkout, you can try up to 3 to 4 flutes for up to 10 days, have an extended 18-month warranty, and free shipping worldwide. So be sure to go to the website flutes4sale.com. So that's flute4sale.com. Flutesforsale.com. Just be sure to use that code TFC for all those perks, and a little bit of that does go our way. Another sponsor is, well, ourselves. We have a store. If you haven't noticed yet, we have a store over at store.theflutechannel.com. We have some shirts and posters and things like that over at Teespring. So you can definitely go there and get some merch, posters, whatever you'd like that we have. It will be there. You probably notice it under our videos. If you're interested, be sure to go to store.theflutechannel.com. That helps us out immensely. So yeah, on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Flute Talk podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Amélie.
How's it going, Emily?
Very good. How are you?
Good. Just want to give a little shout out to all of our patrons on Patreon. We have about 20 of them this month, which is pretty amazing. Abra, Javier Brown, Benny, Demond Jorgensen, Diedrich Bode, Dr. Ollie Malone, Frederick Cafaro, Gail Clow, Jacqueline Hart, Joanne Spear, John Mandeville, Laura Kruner, sorry if I didn't pronounce that wrong, Liz Snelling, Marty Medawar, Michael Rosenberg, Michael Sullivan, Mike Zellers, Sigurd de Mazar, Susan, and Vicky. So yeah, thanks everybody. Like I said in the intro, you can get a call out and also help us support us over on Patreon for those $2 a month. You can also donate $1 too, but $2 gets you shouted out and it definitely goes a long way for us. So yeah.
Thanks so much for supporting us.
Totally. As school's coming into fashion for a lot of people who listen into us, we're going to talk a little bit about practice routines today and like what type of practice routines could be good for certain types of people, I guess. Getting into the routine.
This came from a question we had?
This came from a question. We reached out to the YouTube crowd. I think everybody was on vacation, our Patreon fans, but we still appreciate you supporting us. So we reached out to the YouTube community and asked them about that. And we wanted to ask them, what do you want to talk about? And a lot of people were talking about practice routines, stuff like that. And then if we have time, maybe we can talk a little bit about, there was one question I told you this week about crescendoing and decrescendoing, but that could be something at the end of the show. But
okay. Yeah. That's an interesting topic, practice routines, because there's different layers of routine. Like there's when you practice, and then there's when you practice, what do you practice, in what order as well, because habits are very powerful. And also I think sometimes it's very funny because I just talked about that with a student. We were talking about things I wanted to accomplish, and I don't know, he said something to me, and I was like, oh yeah, it made me realize habits are powerful because they allow you to not make a decision. You know what I mean? So, like, people get decision fatigue because always deciding, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? But if you make a schedule and you say, I'm going to do this and that specific time, then you don't have to make a decision there. And sometimes you make the decision once to make that schedule and then you stick to it.
Right.
So I think that's something that can be interesting. And it doesn't have to be the same every day, because maybe your schedule's not exactly the same every day, but you can say, Monday, I have this time that would be perfect to practice, so I'll practice there. And Tuesday, maybe you don't have time, and Wednesday, you practice from this time to this time. And then you try to stick with it, and the longer you stick with the routine, the easier it is to have it done.
Yeah.
So that's also what I'm gonna try to accomplish this year, because sometimes it's difficult with everything I have to do to get the things that I want to do for myself done, because I put everyone else first sometimes, you know. I think a lot of people have this tendency. And also, I think there's this decision fatigue that I get to a little moment where I have time and I'm like, what should I do with that time? So I'm going to now try to make it a habit.
Right. And for most of our viewership, a lot of them are beginners, and a lot of them don't have necessarily lessons, and maybe they've been learning just online, you know, through little bits of here and there. I think I would probably wonder, you know, what would be principal elements to put in that practice time, you know, like would it be scales? Would it be, you know, learning some music that you enjoy? Is it other things? You know, because a lot of people don't bring that information, hence why we kind of, even if they only had one time of the week to practice, maybe we talk about the key elements of a beginner to learn things.
Well, I think it's difficult because there's different people that will have different goals, and also depending on where you are in your progress, you might have different goals. But I think usually people get a lot from practicing skills like basic sound exercises, scales, little technical exercises that build your skills, you know. Studies are great because they take that vocabulary that you learn in your scales, arpeggios and technical exercises, and then they put it in a little piece that's made to learn. And then when you learn pieces, it gets easier and easier because you already know the vocabulary, because music is made, like tonal music is made mainly of scales, arpeggios, scales and thirds. And once you know those things, learning anything is way faster, you know?
Yeah.
But you don't want to do only one thing and get bored with it. So I think if you have a teacher, your teacher should be the person, a bit like a trainer, saying you do these exercises this week, you know? Should be the person giving you the goals and saying, or it can be done together as well, but, you know, saying, you should do this for a sound exercise and that for scale and all those things. If you don't have a teacher, try to do a sound exercise, at least like doing all the tones on your flute once, maybe a little bit of harmonics if it helps you. You can check. We have a lot of videos about sound and sound exercises. And then maybe you pick a scale, maybe a major and a relative minor, and you keep it for a week. You can say every Monday I change my routine. I switch scale. Or I do my sound exercise a bit differently. Maybe one week I do semitones. One week I'll do octaves. 1 week, you know, you can have different exercises and do them in rotation. This way you don't get decision fatigue. Let's say you have 5 exercises and you rotate them throughout the different weeks. And then scales, it's easy. You just follow the scales and you change every week. Once you have it, let's say 1 octave is good, then maybe go to 2 octaves. Once that's good, maybe do EJ4 in the Tafanel Gobert, or do in Reichert, the number 1 is very good too. But like that's where a teacher can be handy also, to switch the exercises, because the teacher will know more exercises than you do, so it's easier for them to give you different things. But there's a lot of resources like ours. Like we have things to share, and also that's how we're gonna build our books and video series about for beginners, intermediate, and advanced, with how would I say that? Like little routines like that you can just take from the book, and you don't have to worry about it. You just do that. You don't have to figure it out, buy a new book. Everything will be in there, you know? Yeah, so that, and then get a book with studies that's your level. Learn one a week, and then choose a piece, maybe 2-3 pieces for 2-3 months, you know? Or even 4 very good pieces that you like for the year. And different periods, you know, maybe 1 Baroque, 1 classical, 1 more romantic, 1 more modern, or whatever you like. It all depends on your goals, but different pieces, and you work on them for a little longer than you would on a study, let's say, because the study will build your technique, will build your sight reading, but the pieces will go a little bit further, with musicality, style, and all those different things. So, and if you do chamber music, it can be cool, or also orchestra.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes if you don't have enough time, you can also use the things you have to learn, let's say for band or for chamber music or for your solo stuff, and pick things in there that can be your technical exercise or your sound exercise. Maybe or a vibrato. You can practice your vibrato with this line and use another line. And let's say you have a big scale in thirds that's difficult for you. Maybe that's your technical exercise for a few weeks. You can also do that, and that can be more efficient. If you have a limited time to practice, it can be a very good way to do it. But if you really want to build your technique, doing scales the other way is very efficient as well.
Yeah, like the thing about the scales, like learning a new scale a week, you'll be able to learn all the scales that most people should know in a year, give or take even that, so
even less,
so
then you can redo them and do them better every time.
Exactly. And knowing how to play scales and like just learning how to play different types of scales in different ways, like playing them in thirds, seconds, whatever, all those different types of formations. But like starting from like I said, that we have that information out there, but also like a lot of people, like there's so much out there, and a lot of people get so overwhelmed with what there is and what you can take within the little bit of time most people have. And I think what you've mentioned really can put a lot of perspective for those people to make them better, for sure.
And there's no need to do too much at once. It's better if you want to build your technique. I think it's better to do less and do it a lot and then go to the next thing.
Right.
Instead of doing 4 pages of exercises, if it's difficult, just do one.
Yeah.
But do it 4 times.
Yeah.
This way, that page will be learned way better. And then next week, do another one, but do it 4 times a day instead of doing 4 pages once.
Right.
Your brain will incorporate it better.
Right.
It will become automatic way faster this way.
And also, like, there are also a lot of things you can do outside of that time when you're, waiting for something. Say you're waiting at the bus stop or you're doing whatever, like those core elements of like rhythm and, knowing how to do 16th notes, like going ta 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 ta, or like also studying like what the music theory is. All those things go back around and help your scales and help all the things that you do, for sure.
Yeah. And you can practice your double tonguing, triple tonguing without your flute. You can look at your music, as you said.
For sure. You
can play in your head. I tend to move my fingers all the time, playing different things, playing scales, playing all types of things. So, yeah.
So, yeah, that would be probably one of the key elements. Also, like tone, too. Just practicing tone for a week can really, like, not for the week, but say you only have half an hour in a week. Maybe do tone once in the month and then do something else the second week, third week. If you only have like time for just like specific elements, like and you can't find things to do, maybe just focus on just one thing at a time, maybe,
Yeah.
And then,
but I think it's about also making a routine so that you don't lose too much time figuring out what you're going to do. You don't spend 5 minutes figuring out the next thing you're going to practice. So but you also don't have to do always everything. You can skip the sound one day because maybe you feel, I practiced a lot yesterday and my sound's nice, but I think I need to focus way more on something else. And it's totally fine. And you don't have to do it always in the same order either, because maybe if you always practice sound, then technique, then study, and then repertoire, let's say in that order, maybe you're pretty much always tired when you get to the repertoire part. And that means that maybe your pieces will be not well learned as much as if you sometimes say, let's start with a piece today, or let's start with a study. So you have Like I'm not saying you should follow a routine exactly, always the same thing. And I'm saying sometimes it can be helpful so you don't have to get too tired. The way that I really liked to practice is to have a little book, a little practice journal, and I would write what I did, and then in parenthesis next to it, I would write next time I would practice what I would do, because when you're done, you know exactly what would be the next step. But I was like, okay, I'm done for today because I planned 10 minutes of sound.
Right.
Let's say, so like I did that 10 minutes, but next time I'll practice that. And then same with particularly for the repertoire, I would be like, oh, this line is more difficult, so next time I'll practice this line at this tempo, you know. And so next time I would take my flute, I didn't lose time being like, where was I? How did I play that? Did I, try to remember, because everything was in my little journal, and I would just open it and be like, okay, let's go to this spot exactly. And I knew what to look for right away. So losing way less time this way.
Yeah. And like trying to find music and all those things for yourself, like, can be very overwhelming too. But like going on something like Flute Tunes is probably the easiest place to find like studies. You know, there are a bunch of composers like Kohler with a K, like Kohler, something like that, and then Anderson, and there's even like super Garibaldi's like one of the first ones that a lot of people go through, and they're very easy, and they're very progressive, and they're free, and they're on flutetunes.com, and you can print them out or play them on your tablet, and you can get pretty far with those things.
It's a very agreeable way to learn your scales, arpeggios, octaves, all those things, because they usually take all those elements and put them in there.
Unlike Taffanel and Gobert, which is a bit overwhelming for beginners right away, Garibaldi really, from that point on, like really showed a lot of like really progression. It's like it was like a conservatory type of progression type of thing.
Taffanel and Gobert, I think I use more when you get to a certain level, like more intermediate than beginner.
And I know a lot of people
just seeing the 16th notes can be
can be overwhelming. Exactly. And all the different types of slurrings and stuff, and it's really a breakdown of the process, I find, with Taffanel. But it's just like, again, a lot of beginner students fall into Taffanel and they're like, oh, that's whoa, what's this, but Garibaldi's really I would say probably him, and the Quantz has some stuff too that are very, very methodical and approachable for music, and it's all free, so it's pretty amazing in that regard.
Our method will be a bit like that.
But they're really lessons.
But with videos and everything. And we'll try to make it very affordable.
That too. And it's a guide, like, unlike the other ones, they're progressive in a way, but they still lack the lesson structures. There's no lesson structures in there. All it is just, here's scales, here's some very small pieces. But
sometimes you have only pieces. You don't have studies, or you don't. So we're trying to make it like we're almost done. To
go back to the book, it's pretty much that. Like it's really a complete package that you yourself are there guiding them. It's like having, so it's really interesting in that regard. So you'll have to keep an eye out for that. We're going to make an announcement when on the YouTube community page. And like I said, we're making it affordable for everyone. It's going to be a very cool little package that, anybody who wants to start off with the flute, there'll definitely be something fun to learn from, and then you can go back to all the videos that we have already and like understand even more, right? Because I know a lot of people, they say they like the videos, and then they know something, they get some of the concepts, but then some of the other concepts they don't know yet. So, they're waiting in anticipation to understand more, and that's always a good thing. But
sometimes if something is explained to you and maybe you don't have some prior knowledge, you might not get the concept, but maybe you continue your learning process and you go back to it a bit later and you'll find it way more approachable. So it's not because you didn't get it the first time that it was either not well explained or that you're not good enough. It might be neither of those two things. It might just be that there was a little something keeping you from understanding it. And it's going to, we have to be patient with ourselves. And also, we shouldn't identify ourselves with little things that happen to us, like when you say some people get intimidated with things, and then maybe they identify with that and say, oh, I'm not talented. Or I think in music we have this whole thing with talent. I don't think we don't tell our kids that much about oh, you're not talented in math, forget math, or you're not like we tend to encourage. I don't know why talent is this big thing with music. Most people can't play music.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we should have that same openness towards it. Sometimes there's a little thing that need to be explained again, but
no, yeah, totally. Yeah, so maybe we'll go now. Just to cut right in between is just talk about the book we already did. But if you're looking for flute, go to Flute Center of New York. Flute Center of New York is the largest place for purchasing flutes in the world. They have the biggest selection, as you heard in the beginning and intro. If you use our code TFC, either calling them or emailing them, or in their store, which is flute, the number 4, sale.com. You go there and you can try up to 3 to 4 flutes for 10 days and have an extended warranty once you purchase the flute that you want. And it works anywhere in the world. So go and do that. Being fully transparent, we make a commission off of that, but that helps us, and then
it
helps you.
Yeah,
it helps them. It's a win-win. And if you want to have lessons with family, you can definitely email us at info@theflutechannel.com. We have a flute studio here online. You can through Skype or FaceTime, whatever you want. We can make the accommodations for you, and we have reasonable rates. And if you want to know about those rates, definitely email us at info@theflutechannel.com. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else. If there's anything else, we'll definitely talk about that at the end. But let's talk about a little bit about crescendo and decrescendoing, because a lot of people were talking about that. Several comments. Maybe you want to kind of show some examples, and then we're going to have a video out later next week, kind of going a little bit more in depth. But how would you go about it?
I think decrescendo is more difficult than crescendo. So like, just to make sure everyone knows what we're talking about, crescendo means that you're starting soft and then you play louder and louder, and decrescendo is that you start loud and you play softer and softer. It's good, 2 gradual things. And then because you will have to put more air or less air, it's going to affect the intonation. So to counteract that, you'll have to send the air a little bit higher or lower,
right,
to counteract that effect. Is it how you do it?
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think practicing those things with a tuner can be a good idea, because you'll see right away that, I'm getting sharper when I crescendo, and that's what usually happens. You crescendo, it gets sharper, and you decrescendo, it gets too flat. And especially the decrescendo part, because we tend to stop sustaining the air with our abdominal belt, So you want me to play a crescendo?
Right, but like, how would you practice it methodically, like in practice, like as a person who was probably just starting out, like hopefully they have maybe a metronome to see, like, I don't know, a tuner really, right?
The tuner will be the best way. Well, I used to practice my intonation like that. So I would put my tuner, and just to have more flexibility, I guess. Like, it's funny to call it flexibility, because you don't want to, it's not about being flexible with your lips. I don't want to say something that will mix people up, I'm talking just about having more
consistency.
Yeah, I guess.
In tone.
But I'm talking what I mean is like having more tools in your
tools.
More tools in your belt, really. Just so you want to do it, you can do it, Okay. Because you don't need flexibility per se.
Right.
So let's see. Yeah, I used to do that. So I would take a note and then bend it up and back and then down and back, like. Just to see like what muscles were involved, how you do that. And then I would do a crescendo and decrescendo on that same note.
And then would you, in order to make it more challenging or to proceed further, would you add notes?
Yeah. So the way I used to organize that in my practice is that, let's say I had a G major scale that day, I would do it on a G major arpeggio. All the notes of that arpeggio, I would practice them this way. So I had the 3 octaves completely practicing like that. Yeah. So you have to feel like, if you crescendo, you have to kind of open more and send the air a bit lower. And then when you decrescendo, you have to bring it back and close a bit more. And it's the jaw that kind of moves there and does the work.
Right.
But you have to maybe look in the mirror, check, and make sure like you're not using too much movement. Like the upper lip doesn't get involved really.
No.
It's when it moves, it's the lower lip, it's the jaw. It's not the upper lip. So
right.
yeah. So I would practice it like that. And there's a moment where you don't have to think that much. You can just let it happen. You know, you want to get to that moment where you're observing what you're doing without judging too much. You're just trying to see what works, what doesn't, and without an emotional attachment. You know what I mean? Just,
right.
Oh, that works. Oh, that doesn't work. Oh, I did that there. Let's try another way, you know. But the tuner will be a good help, because that's the problem with those things, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But I tend to work a lot on the sound with my students before I get involved with the actual dynamics. Like having a good, round, solid sound, and then I add the dynamics.
Right.
You know? So, yeah. And you can also practice your dynamics like this. Let's say. Or you could do your sound exercises like this.
Right.
You repeat 2 notes, loud, soft, you know. Sometimes I like to practice the soft part because I feel it's more difficult for me than the loud. Loud, I feel you just open, let it out.
Okay.
Soft, I feel you have to have more support of the air. Like you have less air, but you have to have a good air speed. And I like to practice my sound just like that. Just a soft, you know, just practicing stuff. Like, if you see the order in which you should not master, but, you know, control those elements, I would say start with having a good sound. Then practice forte and piano separately with as much contrast as you can. And then put the crescendo, decrescendo at the end.
Right.
Don't try to skip steps, because that might put stress, and stress makes bad habits come, and then it's more difficult to remove them. That's how I would learn. That's how I teach it, and that's how I learned it, I think, too, in that order.
Right. Cool. So hopefully that's a good little primer about that, but that video will probably come out next week about crescendo and decrescendoing and how you can do that with phrasing and stuff like that. So yeah, that's about it for our podcast this week. We do this, not this week, we do this every month, in fact. But you can go and help us and support us on Patreon. This directly is a culmination of that. The people that help us on Patreon help us produce this show and help us produce other content as well. If you want to go to patreon.com/the Flute channel, it's all down in the description. You can support us by donating those $2 a month. And there you can ask us questions. It's a direct line to us where we check out what's going on with our members there and our patrons. They're both the same thing. Yeah. And then if you want to have lessons with Emily, definitely email us at info@theflutechannel.com and we can get in touch with you about that to do online lessons, or if you're in the Montreal area as well too. So yeah, I think that's it. There's hopefully everybody has a nice first couple days and weeks of school. Practice diligently. Make sure your schedule is nice and attainable. And,
attainable is important. I love that.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know, make
Like
it comfortable.
if you put it so that you never have a minute to breathe, maybe
Right.
you won't be able to hold it for the
whole
whole.
year, you know.
Yeah,
So, you know, that's
it's so true.
yeah.
Being realistic in your
Exactly.
expectations.
Yeah. And we have some new videos hopefully coming out soon. We're working on some music videos still that are going to be pretty cool, and some other really interesting videos too that we'll hopefully have out very, very, very soon. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for listening over on. And also, if you want to leave us a voice comment, go on Anchor as well too. Anchor.fm. Look for the Flute Talk podcast there, and you can subscribe there and leave us a voice message, which is really cool. Yeah.
And maybe we'll put one.
And maybe we'll put one on. We put one on, I think, last month or the month before that. So we'll play that live on the show. So definitely go check out Anchor there at anchor.fm / the Flute channel, I think. But you can find us there. Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.